All right, so I'm just gonna get started this morning. Welcome, good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many good faces here online today. I had a request to do this topic, but it's a topic that I like to cover a couple times a year anyways, because I find everybody's so like nervous to dabble in some commercial real estate when, there's money to be made there. Like I find a lot of agents come to me and try to defer and say, oh, do you wanna help me with this? Because my client, I only do residential and my client needs to sell their business or needs to rent a commercial space, but you guys shouldn't be afraid. I actually find commercial really interesting because every single deal is something different, right? And you're not doing the same thing over and over again. Residential real estate is a lot of repeat for us. So give me a little feedback. Who's done some commercial deals so far? Who's been presented with something or a little nervous to do something? What do you guys want me to focus more on today? Do we want to do sale of business or selling commercial buildings? What have you guys encountered with your clients so far? Have you guys encountered any commercial so far?
I got for leasing.
For leasing? Okay, like a commercial business space?
Yes.
Okay, was it like office or retail or industrial?
Retail.
Retail, okay, awesome. Very good. So did you list it?
But it's still there browsing.
Okay, well, don't let them browse. That's what I'm saying. Lock it down, go in with confidence and ask them all these questions that you need to ask them. Okay, so maybe we'll start with like a bit of a commercial lease situation and things that you need to ask them. Now, are they selling the business within, or are they just leasing the commercial space? Like your client owns the building?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay. So there's different things that you want to definitely get into. Leasing is probably, I don't want to say the easiest, but it is generally the easiest when you come across like all the commercial stuff, because you don't have to deal with cap rates and you don't have to deal with net operating income. You just have to look at the comparables like we do with residential resale, like what things are going for in the area. So, if the corner lot here is going for, $55 a square foot, you're an interior retail space, you might go for a little less because you're not right on the corner, for instance. You could adjust your prices accordingly and just look at the recent things that have listed and leased in recent years. Your client has several options when you're leasing. I'm sure you guys have seen it. They can lease per square foot, or they can do a total amount lease. And then when you do a total amount lease, you can either do a net lease or a gross lease. Do you guys know the difference between the two? So in commercial, they have something called TMI, taxes, maintenance, and insurance. If you looked up any commercial listings, I'm sure you've seen it there. The taxes and maintenance and insurance is an amount that you can't negotiate. That's why they keep it separate, because those are actual costs. So generally when you're submitting, say, for instance, you put up this lease listing, you'll get an offer, say you listed it for $20 a square foot. You might get an offer for your listing saying, I'm going to lease it for $19.50 a square foot. But they won't mess with the TMI portion, because the TMI is the actual costs of the building. So the taxes, the maintenance, and insurance on the building of the commercial property. Whereas the net rent is just what the landlord's making in his pocket, right? So he can negotiate that portion of it. So keep those things in mind when you go to list it. I would look at listings around you and see, are they listing, gross leases, net leases? Are they doing it per square foot? Sort of go so you can look competitive with what they're doing there, you know what I mean? And same with the commission. Very often I came across a commission recently for my listing. Personally, I have some agents asking me about leasing it, and the last time my client leased it, and the majority in that building just gives a half month's rent, whereas the agent asking me was saying, how come you're not giving a structured commission? So a structured commission would look something like 4% for the total amount of the first year you're leasing, and then 1% each additional year on top of that. So do we have any idea where they might structure rent this way? Right? The agent might make more money, right? But they're also encouraging you to bring them a strong tenant. Okay. So commercial landlords are very often looking for strong tenants that'll have tenure, they'll stay for a long time in their property. Because blank space is terrible for their businesses, right? It's bad to have a strip mall and have one or two blank spaces. They want to have them full at all times. So they're definitely going to look at the strength of your tenant. And one thing that shows the strength of your tenant is the confidence in the lease term that they want to take. So if they take a 1-year lease term, you're only going to make the 4%, right? Whereas for each additional year, they're giving you the bonus that they're also going to give you 1% for each additional year you sign your client up for. Now, while you might be making a lot more money by signing your client up for 5 years or a 10-year lease, you have to be cautious and you have to know your client as well, because you don't want to sign them up for a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease if they're starting a brand new business. If they're trying, I don't know, a jewelry store and they've never owned a jewelry store before, they want to rent a space. The most I would put my client in is a 2-year lease, because I'll tell you why. Commercial landlord-tenant relationships are a lot more, I hate to say hostile, but they're a lot more aggressive than residential tenancy. If you're a day late or a dollar short on your rent, they can lock your unit and confiscate your stuff inside. They don't have to go through this long process like we're used to with the landlord and tenant board and residential tenancy, right? So be careful. It's a kind of a catch-22 where you're like, okay, I definitely want to make more commission and I want to sign my client up for more, but you definitely want to put them in at least that they're comfortable with. So how do you do that? You have to ask your client about their business, right? What kind of business they're doing, how long they've been in it. Do they have experience? They want to open up a restaurant? Great. Have you run a restaurant before? Have you worked in a restaurant before? You kind of have to just really get to know them very well to see how you're going to place your client accordingly, right? No worries, yeah.
So what is not negotiable? Tax, maintenance?
Taxes, maintenance, and insurance. It's listed on the listings. You'll see them here. I'm going to pull up some listings. How would I do that so we can walk along? Let me just log into my Stratus here. So it's listed as TMI on our listings, and it's a non-negotiable amount because it's the actual cost. So whatever the landlord's costs are for taxes, maintenance, and insurance. And when you rent from them, you can ask them a breakdown of what the taxes, maintenance, and insurance are. So they can show you, oh, we did a roof repair and the snow removal was this much. And, there's 12 units and we divided it by these 12 units. Therefore, your cost is, your $10 per square foot kind of thing. I'm just logging into Stratus. I'm going to share my screen here with you guys so you can see what we're talking about here. I just give you guys a good example of it, break it down. All right, so. Okay, so we're just going to go in here. Well, we'll search for a commercial lease. Hopefully we'll come across a couple of different kinds. I'll try to search like a populated area here in Scarborough, maybe, and see what we come up with.
Same thing like a house searching, but commercial.
Same thing like a house searching, but commercial, exactly. So, I put sale, sorry. Let me go back to lease. Okay, commercial, and then lease, okay. And then we're gonna go into here. Now, when you're searching for leases, you can basically search like you do for residential. For sales, it's a little bit different, and I'm hopefully get around to showing you guys some tricks, because that's another thing I've come across where somebody says, my client really wants a church, or my client really wants something really specific, like a slaughterhouse. You know what I mean? My client really wants something that you're not looking for every single day. And I'll show you guys a trick how to look that up. I just want to pull some of these up. Oh, there we go. That's a good chunk, 41. And let's see what we come across for these commercial leases. So we'll just show you what I was talking about a little bit, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of how to list it, right? You can go get that lease listing. Okay, so you can see here, a lot of these are a square foot price. We start off with $9.25 a square foot. Okay. Okay, so this is a good example. So here we have, let me just highlight my mouse so you guys can see me here. All right, so here you have $9.25 a square foot, okay? And then you see here, it says $4.86 for 2021 for the TMI, okay? So that's the landlord telling us that however many units he has here, you can see that it's sort of a strip industrial condo here, right? That's happening. Say there's 50 units in this plaza that he owns. He's taken his total cost for the year for his snow removal, his grass cutting, his roof maintenance, his insurance for the year, and his taxes for the building. And he split that up amongst the 50 units in this building. And his actual cost is $4.86 per square foot for the building. So whatever your proportionate share is, so in this case, it's 5,500 square feet, that's going to be the proportionate share for this unit. This is the part that I was saying is not negotiable. So you don't submit an offer saying, I only want to give you $4 TMI because I tell you the a listing agent is going to automatically know you're a newbie in commercial, right? This is why I caution you guys with this kind of thing. So don't switch that. If you want to negotiate, you can try and negotiate the list. In commercial, it's a little bit more difficult unless you're giving them a strong lease. You say, look, I'm giving you a really strong lease for 5 years. Start me off at $9 a square foot. And you'll find that another thing I want to mention is the more years you sign up, every year you're going to realize there's going to be an increase. So say you even get this one, you're able to negotiate $9 per square foot. You can bet the second year is going to be $9.25 a square foot. Third year will be $9.50 a square foot. It's going to go up and up and up. I'll show you a whole area lease right now. I'm just going to, before I switch off of this, I want to do just a quick calculation of what this rent is, because I find that's another thing that I have to go through with a lot of agents. So we're just going to quickly calculate this now. I'm going to see if I can pull up my calculator so online people can see as well what I'm doing. Okay. So can everybody see my calculator online? Sometimes it loses the share when I switch screens around there. So I have here $9.25 a square foot. Okay. And I have to times that by how much square feet this unit is. So it's 5,500 square feet, right? Okay. So that's going to give me a total of $50,875 for the year. Okay. I need to divide this by 12 months because there's 12 months of the year. And that's going to give me the rent, just the net rent. Okay. Per month. So I'm going to have $4,239 in net rent. Now I have to calculate the TMI. Okay. So I'm going to take that same $5,500 and I'm going to multiply it by the $4.86 TMI. Okay. And that's going to give me $26,730. I also have to divide that by 12. And that gives me $22,2750 per month. So when I add that back in with the $442.39 that we originally calculated for the net rent, my gross rent per month for this unit is $64.6650, right? And commercial rent always has tax on top of that. Oh, sorry, I just lost that. Let me go back here. Say it was $64.56. Sorry, I forget what it was off the top of my head. Now we have to add tax on top of that. So we'll add the 13%. Your total rent for the unit would be $72.95.28 approximately. Did everybody understand that? Or do you guys want me to do it one more time? But one more time. Okay, we'll grab the next listing and see what it's like. Okay. So I go to the next listing. $9.15. Oh, the TMI is expensive on this one. Okay, so you see what the difference is. This is office and it's in a retail space. You'll find, okay, basically the cheapest, if your client is looking for a really cheap unit, I don't care if I have a storefront, I would automatically look for something like an industrial unit. They tend to be the cheapest. Once you go to retail, the prices definitely jump, right? When you have a storefront and something you can like sell out of. All right, so I had a request just to do the calculation again. Everybody good online there? Let me just check everybody online here. How's everybody doing? Everybody following along online so far? I'll go back to my share if you guys are good. I just had a request to calculate the rent again one more time. So we're going to do this unit. So this unit is a smaller unit. It's only 1,100 square feet as we see. Let me get my mouse back here. Okay, so it's $9.50 a square foot. So I'm going to take that $9.50 per square foot and I'm going to multiply it by 1,100 square feet. Okay. So when I do that, I get 10,450. Okay. Then I have to divide it monthly. There's 12 months in the year. So I'm going to divide it by 12. My monthly net rent is $870.83. Okay. That's for the net rent. Now the TMI on this building seems to be really high. It's more than the net rent. So I'm going to take the $15, it says it is per square foot. I'll multiply it by the 1,100 square feet. And I get 16,500 for the year. And I'm going to divide that by 12 months. And I get 1,375. Okay, that's for the TMI per month. So the 1,375 for TMI plus I had 870, 83 for the net rent, right? Gives me 2245, 83 a month. And there's always tax on commercial rent. So, you know, when we say it's $2,000 a month in residential, it's just 2,000. No, they then take that 2245 and they tax it. So the rent would actually be 2537.79 because you'd round up, right? You guys get it that time? You're good? You can always ask me again if you're ever calculating something and you're totally confused. Just ask me again and we can figure it out. Once you get used to doing it, though, it'll be a no-brainer. It's fairly straightforward. Okay. So now that's if we do stuff per square foot. Let's see if we can find an example here of something that's a total rent, which is easy because then we don't have to calculate it off the top of our head. Okay, so see here in these codes, we have net lease, gross lease. Okay, let's just take one and look at a gross lease. So 525 Markham Road. We have a gross lease of $2,000. So it's straightforward. We have 626 square feet at $2,000 a month. This is inclusive of the TMI, because as you see, it's a gross lease, which includes everything. And they've put 0 as the taxes, maintenance, and insurance. There's no TMI on top of this. So that's a straightforward lease. You could always do it that way if you're it's just easier for your landlord to figure out that way. Okay. Let's go into a net lease and see. Okay. So this net lease, they have 2250. They put it as a net lease. They haven't actually put a TMI amount. Let's see if they have anything down in the description. So this does not have anything. Oh, here. There you go. Tenant will pay proportionate share of utilities of about $250 per month in addition to the net lease price. So there you go. The taxes, maintenance and insurance are itemized in the comments there. So that's what makes this a net lease. There's still a TMI on top of it. So when you see net, you can't tell your client, be careful not to tell your client, oh no, the rent's $2,250. And when they get there, there's $300 or $400 on top of that TMI, plus the tax. Now you're closer to a $3,000 rent. You're way out of your client's budget now, right? So be very careful when you're looking through these, the difference between net lease and gross lease, okay? In this gross lease, you can confidently tell your client, it's only $2,000 a month for this unit, right? There's no TMI on top of it. But this net one, even though it doesn't look like much more at $2,250, by my calculations will end up closer to, you know, at least the north end of the 2000s with the $250 on top of it, $2,500 plus the 13% tax, right? You'll definitely be closer to $3,000 on this one, right? So when you're looking in your client's budget, you have to make sure you be mindful of these things and take note the difference between net lease and gross lease, right?
So net lease is only
net lease is only the rent.
And of course,
Gross
everything
includes the TMI
TMI means tax, maintenance,
and insurance. Yeah.
insurance,
Mhm.
all together, and plus 30 for tax already.
Plus,
30%.
yeah, I'll always have to add the tax. Whatever number you end up on, you always have to add the tax, right? Very often you find too, after you do paperwork on ORIA paperwork for a commercial deal, whether it be a sale or a lease or something, they usually have their own lawyers drawing up paperwork. It's more of a formality. You know, when you're doing leases now, it's more of a formality, and then you have to do the standard form of lease, which is the government lease paperwork, right? You'll find every different person you're dealing with because they're incorporated companies owning these huge plazas and industrial complexes. They have their own leases drawn up by their lawyers. So once you finish doing ORIA paperwork, they're going to give you their paperwork anyway. So it'll say right down to the penny what the rent is in case you've miscalculated, but you should still have a very good idea of how to do it right down to the taxes and everything to give your client an idea. Because like I say, in this case, 2000 and 2250 look very similar, but completely different budgets. If your client says my max budget is 2000, right? You can't give them this one at 4500 Kingston because it's going to end up being closer to 3000, right? even though they were pretty similar in size, I think, right? Because this one's 626 and this one's 725. See, they're only about 100 square feet difference amongst each other, but they're almost $1,000 apart per month in rent, which is a lot, right? All right, I'm gonna stop the share for a second and check on everybody online. How's everybody doing online? You guys following along so far? Is there any specific questions you guys have so far? Anything specific you guys are dealing with that I can help you with? I have lots and lots of content when it comes to commercial real estate. Like that's why I find I'll do this topic at least 3-4 times a year for sure. And start off with the basics and get more in depth. So you guys let me know if there's something you're working on or a question you had or something you're lost, something I can actually help you with right now. I don't mind covering it, or I'll just continue on with something that I have. You guys good? Okay, so I'm going to go to the share then, and let me go to this screen here. I think I'll go over sale of business next, because that's sort of the next thing that comes. After you understand how a lease works, you might be selling a business. In order to sell a business, you have to understand how the lease works, period, because it's the strength of the sale of the business, right? Well, of one portion of it, for sure. So let me just go here for a second and say here, listing a business. Well, you know what, I'll go here. I think I sent myself some stuff this morning. So how many people have tried to list a business for their clients? It's kind of a difficult situation. Like I say, it's not like residential real estate where you're going and doing the same thing over and over again. There's definitely a ton of questions you have to ask your client and things that you wouldn't normally think of when you're just doing residential, right? So I kind of put this checklist in play, and it was a good thing because over the years when I started training, I just started pulling it into the training. But this was an actual checklist I had made myself after conversations with my dad, and he was sending me on appointments to list these businesses. I would forget everything I had to ask and say, did you ask this? Did you ask that? And I go, no. So I made myself cheat sheets over the years. So they're good for you guys to have. I don't mind sharing them. If you're going to list a business, there are some things you should be asking them. Like, for instance, how much did they purchase the business for? If they didn't purchase it and they just created it, or you know what I mean, just started, like you can get an idea of what the startup costs were, how much money they put into the business. How long is the lease? This should be definitely one of the first things you're asking, because when you're listing a business, a lot of people are going to come in and ask you what the strength of the lease is. Why? Because, for instance, if the landlord is planning on selling next year and you only have 1 year, there's no guarantee for that business coming in. If that business comes in and they set up everything and they repaint and they put some money in, say it's a restaurant, to coming in and they put new tables in and new chattels and fixtures, right? And then the landlord doesn't renew the lease after 1 year. They put all that money into the business and they can't renew in that spot where they've opened up, right? So the strength of the lease is definitely important when you're discussing selling a business. So you should be asking your client, how many years left in your lease? What is the right of renewal? So right of renewal, do we all understand what this means? This is a concept where the landlord says, because you're a tenant and you've paid on time and you're not in default, I give you the right to renew your lease first in that location. And they'll usually have a term set on it, 5, 10 years. I'll give you the right to renew. Okay. How many years left in lease? How renewal privileges? Went over that. Any restrictions in place for the purchaser? So the landlord may want to screen the new tenant coming in. A lot of times they want them to fill out credit applications, give them their business history. Like I was saying, you know, how we were talking about the strength of our client and how long we should put them in that lease. Landlords want to determine if they're a good tenant to come into the building and whether they've done this business before, whether they have a good customer base, whether they know what they're doing in the business. I find it's very difficult to work, and it's not impossible, but it is a little difficult to work with people who are just starting up a business and have never done it before, because a lot of landlords, their screening process is stringent and they want to see that there's strength in the business, right? If it's a franchise, you have to also keep in mind that that might be a restriction in place for the purchase, because franchises do the same thing. They want to screen the tenant, and they want to screen the new purchaser, of the business, and they want to make sure that they're worthy. So like chains like Tim Hortons and McDonald's are really difficult to buy because their screening process is really difficult. They want to know that you've run something similar or another kind of Tim Hortons or something very similar in order for them to approve you.
You said about the credit check, yeah?
Yeah.
So like a house or something, so minimum 650 also start like a lender or closer.
I think that they're more stringent than that, especially when it comes to businesses, and they want to very often see. Yeah. I don't know, in landlord to landlord, it's different.
Yeah.
So like it's arbitrary. It's not like getting mortgages where you say, okay, we can work with a 650 minimum. It's really different. Like, you know, sometimes you, even in residential, you hit landlords that are determined it has to be an 800 credit score, and some will take a 650. Like, it's arbitrary. It's up to that landlord. It's whatever they think is making the business strong, right? So definitely if your client has done the business before, or they've done a similar business, or they have another location, it makes them a stronger tenant, right? But if not, you have to know how to structure it. Just put forth, you know, maybe they've got, you know, this business plan in place. It shows they're well prepared and they've got X amount of money in the bank, you know, to start and support their business for this first 6 months. And, you know, I don't know, like, you know, different things you can structure. It's not impossible if your client is new at the business. You just have to know how to make it a strong deal for them, right? To put it together. Is the sale plus or with stock? Big question. So a lot of times if you're selling something like a restaurant or a convenience store or even a mechanic shop, there can be a lot of stock involved, and your client might not be thinking about this. They might think, oh, you know, I want $100,000 for this business, and someone comes in, gives them a deal for $100,000. Great, we have a deal now. Okay, well, what about all the stock? Oh, well, I thought that was included with the sale. There can easily be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stock sitting in any place. You know, you really have to think about it, especially in places like automotive shops and stuff like that. It looks like a lot of nothing, but it ends up to be quite a bit of money, right? So you have to ask them, is the sale including stock? If so, how much stock do you have on hand? It's a good idea to make your client do a list of all this, you know, a rough list of the stock that they have in place, and also the chattels and fixtures. So I've come across deals where, for instance, a convenience store is being sold and the people have come in and said, okay, I'm going to buy, you know, this business. Great, no problem. But, you know, these 3 freezers were a rental from whatever vending company they were signed up with. And this cooler was a rental, and that coffee machine was a rental. And they come in and half the store is clear now because they no longer have those rental contracts with those vendors, right? So you have to be very clear. There's a lot of things you have to think about. You kind of have to think about, okay, what runs this business, right? Is there lottery? Lottery is another thing like franchise that has to be approved, right? So if you have a purchaser for a convenience store or somewhere else that would sell lottery, like a grocery store or something like that, they have to be approved by the OLG, right? If they have a liquor license, if it's a restaurant that has a liquor license, they have to be approved, right? So maybe you can purchase the business, no problem. But if you have, I don't know, a bad background where the liquor board is not going to give you a liquor license, you might not have a thriving business like that previous restaurant, because maybe people came there to like dine and have a few drinks, depending on the location, right? So all of these are things you have to think of when you're dealing with your client and sale of business. Sale of business is, I always say, people can go down the rabbit hole. It's like, it can get really overwhelming, but you just have to sit and sort out the different things. You have to look around, talk to your client about the daily running of their business, how many employees they have, how many days are you open, what are your hours of operation, right? A tricky thing here now I have, sorry, did you have something? I thought you wanted to ask me something.
No, like a lotto.
Uh-huh.
For example, you selling to me,
Yeah.
you are the person for lotto.
I can't sell to you. That's the whole thing. Even though I have lottery, I'm selling you my convenience store business, not the store, because I'm renting the store. I'm selling you my business. I've been in this neighborhood for 30 years. I have a lot of people who like coming to my convenience store, right? But I can't sell you lotto because it's owned by the OLG.
So then any agreement, okay, 6 months you have improved, then we will keep back to the lotto.
So you have to make the deal conditional for your client.
Yeah.
And I'd say you give it some time, you know, like 30, 60 days, because it's not quick. And I'll say, okay, give me 30 days. I'm going to go now apply for my own license.
Yeah.
Or can you sign to transfer your license and let me get approval from the OLG to get the lottery under my name, right? Because not only the location has to be approved, but the person has to be approved, right? So, I mean, they do a strict screening process. Like usually you have to get a criminal record check and stuff like that. You can't be somebody, you know, who has like a shady past and be selling the lottery, right? I don't think they like to see bankruptcies or insolvencies and stuff like that, right, on your record. It's the same thing like when you're, you know, like in our real estate license, we have to give our criminal check to show that we don't have, you know, some kind of crazy past, and then because they're insuring us, right? Same with the OLG. right?
Like we can do conditional like a 2 months. The old owner is still substitute with us or something. We can go that the old owner who is selling
Yeah.
by the new to the old. So that when you say I am still here, the another 2 months or something conditional.
So there is like a settling in period. There is a settling in period. And it's not necessarily for approvals, because say I buy the business and I say you have to stay 2 months on the property and help me sell the OLG or use my liquor license or whatever, but in 2 months I don't get approved. I've already bought the business. So I wouldn't necessarily do it that way. I'll talk to you about a settling in period in 1 second though, but I would make my offer conditional on it for sure, because I want to make sure that my client's getting approved for that kind of thing to purchase this business in that location, right? Just quickly talking about the financials. Are the financials available? Usually we're looking for 2-year financials from whatever business we're purchasing, or if you're the listing agent, you got to get that collected from your client. This is really tricky with like with coronavirus and everything with COVID and everything that we've had. A lot of people's financials don't look good, right? And it may be the reason they're selling. It may not be the reason they're selling. Maybe they're just retiring. So I find it's been really difficult for people to show their financials, right? So you really have to talk to your client, like, has business dipped? What other things have you done to increase your business during COVID? It's kind of a whole different can of worms that you have to open up with them, because it doesn't look good for purchasers right now to pull out those financials from the last 2 years, especially, right? Because we've been in that rut with COVID. A lot of businesses have taken a hit for it, right? What were we just talking about? We were talking about something. I was going to touch on it again. Yeah, so basically, I'm just saying, like, you have to ask these questions to make sure that your client is getting into something that makes financial sense for them, right? You don't want them to purchase a business that there's no, oh, I know what I wanted to touch on. On top of this, things you want to ask as the purchaser for a business, okay? So a lot of people don't think of these clauses. You want to ask your listing agent to sign a non-compete clause, right? Do we all understand what a non-compete clause is, right? I was just going over this the other week with somebody. A non-compete clause is basically saying this. So say I'm selling the convenience store on this side where we are right now on Kennedy, right? I want you to sign a non-compete clause saying that for the next year, after I purchase this business, you can't open up a convenience store within a 10-mile radius in this area. Okay, so what this prevents people doing is, I'm, Mr. Smith, I'm selling my convenience store and I sell it to you, Bhaskaran, and you buy it. And now I open up across the street, and everybody who used to come to me here is going to go to me there because I've been in business here for 30 years and they like me better. And you're the new guy in the block, right? So you have to make sure that things like this are written in. If your clients are purchasing, you have to think of how to protect your client in a lot of different ways like this. We were talking about the settling period. It's a great idea. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're writing in clauses for your clients, for instance, saying that, I'm buying the restaurant from you, Bhaskaran, but that doesn't mean that now for the next 2 months until I close, you're going to go on vacation and you're going to be shut down. Right. And you're going to reduce your hours and you're going to fire all the employees and you're going to offer really crappy service. You have to continue the business in the same manner that you've continued up until the point of the sale. Right. And what this does is it ensures that you're still getting the business in the same condition that you bought it, and you're not running it down for the next 2 months. On top of that, what I want you to do is I want you to spend 4 weeks after close with me. Okay. So it's a very soft transition. People still see your face. It's not a complete change of employees. Things are still getting run the same way. I get a little bit of training on how you make certain things in the neighborhood that are popular, that makes the business popular for this particular restaurant. And you get to train employees, right? Together. So definitely things you can think about for your client when they're purchasing. So that's what I was thinking about when we're talking about the settling period. Those are things you want to make sure that your client has for sure. Listing a business. Let's see if I've missed anything on this list here. I run out of time so fast. So what's the motivation? So a lot of people will ask you, why is your client selling the business? Because the first thought is when somebody's selling their business, oh, they're not doing well. It's not thriving, right? So you have to know what your client's motivation is. Oh, they've injured themselves, they've run it for 40 years, they're retiring, they're moving out of country, they're going to run another business, they, I don't know, they just had a baby, like whatever your client's motivation is, okay? And because you can't just say to them, well, business isn't doing so well and I'm selling, because nobody's gonna buy that business, right? We talked about lease renewal and renewal privileges. Obviously the square footage, you have to know that information. Let's see here.
What about lease rate?
Sorry?
Say 10 years, lease is 5 years. You want to break the lease, but
You can't break a commercial lease. That's why I say you have to be really careful. With commercial, you can sublet. Most commercial leases will have a sublet clause in there, but it still has to be upon approval of the landlord. But you cannot break a commercial lease. You're stuck. That's why I say you have to make sure if you have a client who's brand new in the business, don't sign them up for 5 years. You don't know if they're going to last 5 years in the business, right? And if they decide after a year or two, like, I can't hack it, I'm not very good at this business, it's really difficult to stop it. It's really difficult to get out of it. Yeah, for sure. Hi, how are you? So yeah, so that's why I say you have to be really, really careful with your clients, right? I had here a note, major road work or construction in the near future. So this is another thing. So motivation. Imagine you're a business on Eglinton Road, right? And 2 years ago or whenever the construction started, you said, hey, I got that notice in the mail that they're going to be doing construction until 2025 now. I'm out, right? And I sell it to Bilkis, and Bilkis buys this, I don't know, nail salon off of me, right, on Eglinton Road. Now for the next 5 years, you have all this road work. It's all, bunged up on Eglinton Road. And you realize that you're not really getting a lot of business because everybody's avoiding the nail shop there because they want to go to the one on Lawrence because the traffic isn't as bad, the construction isn't as bad, right? You have to be aware of different things like this coming up. Is there a new building coming up? Is there road work happening? Is there something happening in the neighborhood that's making this business move? Especially if you go and you look online, you do a search, and maybe there's 5 or 6 businesses in the same stretch of Eglinton that are for sale. You have to ask yourself why. Why are all those businesses selling right now, right? It could be very well because, they were all aware the road work was coming up, right? So you have to be smart and think ahead for your clients. Otherwise, they're going to turn around and go, hey, you didn't tell me this was going to happen, and now I have this business and nobody's coming, right? So you want to ask them about employees and contracts, right? Do you want to keep their employees? Is that employee on contract? Do I have to assume that contract? Can I find new employees, right? You have to ask these questions. And then, oh yeah, equipment's very important. So, I mean, if you're renting an auto mechanic shop and they have 2 bay doors with 2 hoists, and when they leave to take the hoists, because the hoists were theirs, they paid it off and they didn't include it in the sale. Those things are quite expensive. You know what I mean? So you have to make sure you're itemizing, even though you don't know what any of it is. Trust me, it was a huge learning curve for me too, to walk into an auto body shop or an automotive shop and say, oh yeah, it's zoned correctly. I can do automotive work here, auto body work. I can paint cars here. But then my client walks in and they've taken the paint booth. Well, that's a huge expense, right? That your client's going to have to incur. So you have to make sure you ask the questions, everything you're unsure about. Nothing's a stupid question when you're walking through a business with, because your client may not know either, right? They may not think of it either. Even if they are used to doing, auto body work, they might not think to ask, oh, is the paint booth included, or is, the hoist included, or whatever, any business, commercial, even if it's a restaurant, are the stoves and sprinklers included? Are they on a rental contract, or are they owned by you? Are you taking them out? Are you including them as a chattel, right? You have to ask these questions and make sure, because you don't want your clients to come up to some big expense at the end of the day, right? All right, anybody got any questions so far? I feel like I've been talking my ear off this morning. How's everybody doing online here?
I know it's not this thing, but
that's okay.
In this commercial, okay, so we break it in coverage. Okay, but what about the house? 3 months?
So you can't break your lease before a 1-year term. There are certain ways you can get out of it. You're allowed to sublet as per the landlord and tenant board, but you have to provide your landlord with prospective tenant, and they have 7 days to screen that tenant, and they can choose to refuse, right? At the end of your lease term, if you don't sign another lease term, you go as a month-to-month tenant or whatever, bi-weekly, weekly, however you pay. The rule is, however you pay as per the landlord and tenant board, you have to give 2 pay periods notice. So if you pay monthly, you give 2 months. If you pay bi-weekly, you give 1 month notice.
But
If you pay-
have a 1 year lease, then sometimes in the contract we write it 3 month penalty in case you break. That's upfront. When you wrote it, then no more problem.
You can write it and you can try to enforce almost anything, but anything,
No, they accept.
anything, even if they accept, even if somebody signs and initials and accepts, if it's against, if it is contrary to what the landlord and tenant board says, it's null and void in your contract. So, you know, a lot of people write in, oh, you have to provide post-dated checks.
Yeah.
You can't enforce that. Landlord and tenant board won't allow it. Whatever the landlord and tenant board says supersedes whatever we can write in our contracts. So like, that's why I say to people, I'm like, you can say no pets, you can say, you know, post-dated checks, you could say 3 months penalty if you don't give me notice. You can put all this in, people can sign it, you can try and enforce it. If they do, it's fine, no problem. If they kick up a storm though, and it goes to the board won't enforce it, even if they signed on it. Yeah. Yeah. That's why they started putting in place the standard for release now with all our leases, because they're saying like, this is the lease, not what the agents are doing on the agent paperwork. That's the lease, right? Yeah. You can write, even not just real estate agents and stuff, even just like, you know, regular people writing up a lease for their tenant, they write in all kind of crazy clauses. None of them are enforceable. Technically, yeah. So, and a lot of these tenants are savvy tenants now, you know what I mean? Like they know what the laws are, they know what you can and cannot enforce, right? So, yeah.
The biggest problem, the tax friendly, because they say you have to allow.
Yeah.
The landlord they don't want.
Yeah.
We have problem.
Yeah. The only time it's enforceable is if the landlord lives in the house. So for instance, if I live in the house and I'm renting my basement, I can enforce no pets because I can say I'm allergic. But if you're just renting a investment property, you can't enforce it. It's technically when somebody pays you rent, it's their dwelling and you can't tell them that they can't have a pet. What you can write in your leases is saying that they have to restore the property back to the original, whatever, if the pet damages or whatever, but you technically can't enforce, like you can't come in and say, oh, you got a dog, okay, I'm kicking you out now. You can't do that. So yeah, very hard to make it difficult.
Someone asked me for the dog.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
text message and email, I didn't answer, I just pour in there, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And then after finish, we say, oh, okay, forget that. Now I have the other client, they have the 2 cats.
Oh,
Right.
so funny. Yeah, I know it's difficult. It's difficult for sure. How's everybody else doing there online? You guys good? Did you have anything specific you wanted me to cover before we leave today? Like I say, every single commercial deal is, oh, please share a few about multi-residential units. Exactly what did you want to know about multi-residential? So multi-residential is zoned commercial at the time of purchase, but because it's residential, each unit is still governed by landlord and tenant board laws, right? So, I mean, at the time of purchase, it may be dealt with differently as far as the kind of down payment or how you have to purchase it. But when you deal with it, as far as leases are concerned, with those tenants in there, they're governed the same. So I don't know if that answers your question or if you had something specific. Did you have something a little more specific about multi-residential? Like I always say you guys every single week, reach out to me, text me, call me. If you're in the middle of doing something and you're like, I don't know how to sell an ice cream shop, you know what I mean? Well, I may not know either, but we'll figure it out together. You know, like I was going to show you guys some tricks, but maybe we'll do it when we do sale of commercial. Oh, hi. Yeah. Did you have a question? I don't know, who was that? I thought someone was talking there. Okay. If you guys have a question, just reach out to me and we'll work it out together. Because I've navigated lots of deals. I didn't know what I was doing, right? Necessarily about the business, but at least I know the concept of what we have to get together in order to make the deal happen. So we can figure it out and we can like try and search online. I've helped quite a few people here already, muddle through some things that I never, like I say slaughterhouse, because literally we were talking about a slaughterhouse and I've never ever bought or sold one before. So it's fun. It's fun to try to, I enjoy commercial a lot. I encourage you guys to really try and get some commercial deals done. They can be really fruitful. Like I've seen like, I mean, obviously in leases, it's going to be, you know, a regular kind of commission, but if you get into commercial and you get good at it, you can get some really, really nice commissions selling some big commercial buildings and businesses. So don't shy away from it, and definitely check it out and try it, because it's exciting. It's definitely exciting. At least I think so. Like I say, it's not the same mundane thing doing every single day with residential resale, right? So, all right, everyone. I wish you the best of luck this week. I hope everybody's first quarter is looking good. I can't believe we're almost at the end of January already. It's crazy to think that we're at the end of January. So hopefully we've got some sales under our belts, and we've got some plans for some more, because it's only a couple months left for the first quarter. And then, you know, we're into our spring market basically. So everybody take care this week. Enjoy the rest of the sunny day, and call me if you need me. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Christine.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, VG.